Everyone is trying to find the absolute perfect property. To me, it's probably the most, it doesn't tick all my boxes and all that stuff. So I would say if a property ticks 8 or 9 out of 10 of the boxes that you're looking for, you should probably pull the trigger, because 6 months down the track, that 8, 9 or 10 boxes of property will be costing you a lot more. The market has moved so fast. There's also the problem of bringing mum and dad to every inspection and mum and dad giving you advice all the time. And I can't believe you're buying this for that. In my time, it was $50,000. It doesn't exist anymore, but we see it a lot. And very often when first-time buyers are using guarantors, they'll have a big say in the property they're buying. And unfortunately, more often than not, they're not going to be successful in securing property because of advice they're receiving. And then you see the same buyer 6 months, a year later.
Yeah.
And I know when I see a first-time buyer for a year or two, I know how much money to miss that on, because I know what I've been selling for the last 4 years. And even them, they tell us, I should have bought that. I should have bought that. I wish I didn't listen to my dad or whatever.
Does that come back from like them lowballing then? Like, is that it, or not meeting the market, or is it a combination of a couple of things, or
parents saying, you can't pay this for a townhouse, you can't pay this for a unit, I don't like this, I don't like that, and they just take that advice to heart. And unfortunately, well, there's things you can fix, there's things you can't, but we see it quite a lot. And the last thing which is becoming more and more common with first home buyers using online valuation tools, bank valuation tools or anything like that. And they're like, you guys are asking for 900, my online valuation tool says 750. Why is it so much? Well, your online valuation tool doesn't know they've done a massive renovation, doesn't know the most recent sale in the street that's probably not settled yet. They really don't know anything that's happening in that property. So they make an offer. It's like, well, I'm just going to make an offer. That's what my bank's done. Your bank hasn't even been in the property. Mm. If you're really scared, you have a finance clause, you'll probably have a valuation there of someone coming out doing a really, like a physical bank valuation. And if it's not on par, or you either have to put up the difference in money, or you can terminate. Yeah. So you have no risk if you really think it's not worth that. Unfortunately, we see those buyers missing out by 50 or 100K quite often because they're listening to online valuation tools.
And what would be, I guess, so on that, like what would be a really good tip you'd have for, so let's say, you get the online valuations, okay, they're not quite meeting the mark. What would kind of be your bit of advice then for first home buyers to get a really good understanding around, potentially where the market is then?
Go to open houses, keep a track on what's selling. Ask the agent, can you let me know when it goes unconditional? When it goes unconditional now, we send a text to everybody that's come out. Just so this property is sold for this. And we have a lot of coming back saying, thanks for letting me know, because at least they're learning. I would say after a month to 2 months on the market, you have a pretty good idea of what properties are costing, especially if you're looking 1 or 2 suburbs. You'll know, you'll have your own research, you'll know exactly street away sold for this, street away sold for that. They've done a new kitchen that's worth 30, 40, 30K, whatever. So you have a pretty good idea doing your own research. It'll be way better than an online valuation tool. Have a look at how many people at the open house. Yeah. Have a look what the competition could be. Ask the agent, look, how many offers am I dealing with? Am I in a multiple offer situation? After a month or 2 months, we see buyers already knowing a lot more about property value than when it first came. It's my first week booking. They have no idea, and it's normal.
You just mentioned a really key term there, which I'm sure you're seeing lots of at the moment. That's multiple offer situation. Let's maybe start there, and maybe we can then potentially just walk into what kind of sales campaigns are there at the moment. But do you just want to walk us through what does a multiple offer situation look like when that's presented to someone looking to buy a property?
Sure, it is very challenging to be in a multiple offer situation. So the terms are very important. So we always go back to every buyer before we sell the property, and we tell them, look, my next phone call is going to be whether you get a property or not. I need your best and final offer on paper, and I need it by close of business today. If you want to have a solicitor review the contract, please do it now. And people are like, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Well, I haven't seen it tomorrow in a long time. It doesn't exist anymore. So it's very hard when you're a first home buyer. You just gotta trust your gut, offer what you're comfortable with. But the amount of people making best and final offers, and I call them back the next day and they say to me, just so I know, how much did that business buy on? And I'll be like, look, I can't tell you, but it's only a few $1,000s. And I would have done that. Mm. Unfortunately, we've given you every opportunity and we can't really, it's gone. So I always say, make an offer. You're not gonna, you won't regret not getting it. That's my best and final. If you call me tomorrow and I miss out by 5Ks, which is nothing in a scheme of 30 years, I'm not going to regret it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is I guess exact situation. It's kind of like put your absolute best foot forward, and you're right. You're not going to squabble over 5, 10, 15 grand, particularly when you're into the property market. And so that's really insightful, I think, because I feel like we're seeing multiple offer situations happen more and more all the time, particularly when we're seeing the traction and a lot more people going to open homes and wanting to put offers in on property, particularly in the Brisbane market. And so I guess the next question is then based around, well, those sales campaigns, right? For anyone that's here, I'm sure everyone's had a bit of a look on realestate.com before, and there's stuff for sale, or it's auction, or there's a price point, or it's prices over, or do you just want to give us a run through of maybe even from like your mindset when you were having the conversations with your sellers of like maybe why you be positioning those particular campaigns the way they are?
Sure. So we don't do a lot of auctions because when you're looking at 90% of first home buyers, all of us pretty scared with auctions, which is completely normal. Very often you're relying on a seller's building and pests. I wouldn't rely on a seller's building and pests. I would always do one myself, and I'm telling you this as a seller's agent. Unfortunately, we've seen, agents recommending, those building inspectors that not going to put some stuff. So we don't do a lot of auctions. They're pretty scary for a lot of buyers. Offers over is a very tricky one because you've got agents trying to, offers of $799 and the property ends up selling for over $900 is so frustrating. Technically, when we do offers over something, it means that our client has told us that if the best offer is $799, they'll take it. Right? If it sells for more, then it is. But if you're the only offer and it's $799, technically, they have to take it. And very often some agents will be like, no, but I really meant $850. Well, then don't bait everyone out at $799 because that's really not fair, and that agent's probably not going to get the business back anyway. Yeah. So being pretty fair to buyers is important. And obviously, which we do most often, is it's just a for sale campaign. A lot of buyers get very frustrated when we don't put prices on. Unfortunately, sometimes we appraise property and people will think it's way cheaper or way more expensive than what it is. It's really hard to appraise properties in a current market. We've had some selling for a lot more than we expected out of absolutely nowhere. You just need the one buyer to go very emotional on it, being desperate and paying a lot more, and it's really hard to appraise. So we do for sale, but when they call us, we go, look, we don't want to bet you into anything. We think it's going to be between this and between that. If your budget is above this, you should be at the property. And that's the most common thing you see. You don't see prices. We used to do prices like 2-3 years ago because the market was pretty steady and we sort of knew where it was. Now it's really hard to do because it's very often, more often than not, going for more than what we expect.
That's a good point. And so obviously with the changes that have come in or are going to be coming in around the 700 and potentially, it is going up to $1 million for the first home guarantee scheme. What kind of impact do you think that that's going to have with regards to the market?
That's the problem when you go to federal election. Everyone is promising the world, and I think it's going to be really terrible. So I've seen it when it put the 700,000. Everyone was coming out. I can only purchase 699,999. And unfortunately, the amount of properties under 700,000, Brisbane is running out very quickly. And what happened is the second they introduced that, the 650 property became 699 in the space of like 3 seconds. It was crazy. So, and now you just need someone who is not a first home buyer to go at 710 and everyone's out. Yeah. They can actually afford 720 and then tell us that, but they really don't want to because they want to save this money. Unfortunately, now if it goes to $1 million, interest rates are down. You just fueling the fire. That's my opinion. Now 7 to $1 million, low interest rates, guarantors help. I think it's going to get really bad for first home buyers. Sorry, guys. If I were you, if I was a first home buyer, I would try and get in, and I would try to get in before it gets bad because unfortunately, those 800 property are going to be 900, and they're going to be $1 million, and then we're going to have the problem that we have at 699. We're going to have at 999 very soon. In the next 2 years.
So what Remy's saying, guys, is go and buy a property for 800 and you're probably going to sell it for $1 million in about 6 months.
That's I've been selling units and townhouses for so long, but I've got some examples where they bought 3 years ago, like I paid too much, right? We resold it a year and a half later for like $200,000 more. It has not stopped, and we see a lot of people. I will never pay this for a unit for a townhouse. Like, they are doing really well because houses have more maintenance. After COVID, maintenance become a big thing, and they're very popular. They're great. If you look at Sydney, the same distance to CBD we're selling, you won't find a townhouse for $750 actually. They don't exist anymore. So there's a lot of growth to be had here. They make a really good platform for first home buyer. All my clients, all the repeat business that we had, they bought brand new, or they bought their first home was a townhouse, and when they're ready for the house, they either keep it as investment, depending on the financial situation, and they make great investment property. They rent like that. They're easy to maintain, or they use the equity because of every single time they would have built a lot of equity, 100, 200 in a few years easily.
And so just on those kind of price points at the moment, like would 700 get you anything in Carina in the present market? Or
the problem is, right, yes, you can still find them.
What could you buy for me?
Two-bedroom townhouse.
Okay.
But it needs bathroom, it needs kitchen, it needs painting, it needs...
But that, like, all that stuff's cosmetic, right?
It's cosmetic, but, it will probably add up to about 20 to 30K.
Well,
which...
Yeah, and so sorry, just on that point then, so let's say you tip in 20 or 30, like that, but that's money maker, right? Like, that's how you manufacture equity.
Yep. A lot of our clients have tenants in properties, and they say, we want to sell it. Normally they're like, 650 to 7. We say, look, you can sell it as is, or you can renovate a little bit, do cosmetic stuff. And buyers like it because not many buyers have cash for a deposit and cash to do those things. So they'll pay a little bit more, but they'll get something. These owners spending 20, 25K are probably increasing their value by 100 by just doing 20, 25K worth of cosmetic work, because people will pay a premium to move in, not lose time and money doing these things.
Okay, I'm not trying to hog too many questions because I reckon you're going to have a few get fired your way. Being a real estate agent, everyone wants to know how to unlock the mind of a real estate agent. The last one I've got is just around the market, where you like presently see it, I guess, kind of like a two-pronged question. Like, where do you see the market at the moment? Kind of looks like it's going this way. And what's the activity like on the ground in open homes? Obviously, it depends on the property, but if you could give us a bit of a run through around what you're seeing in your open homes right now.
Anything under $1 million is in a capital city, in the areas that we're serving, is still deemed very affordable. So anything between, 7 and $1 million, which, is where first home buyers mostly are, is going to increase. There's a lot of buyers out there. Like, we were averaging 4 years ago, we're averaging 5 to 10 groups for open house. Then after COVID, it went to 30 to 40 people for open house. Then it slowed down a little bit. Late last year was probably the slowest since COVID, like that October, December period. And then this year it's gone up again. So we're like 20 to 25 groups per open house and very competitive.
One last question for you, actually. What are you finding like what I mean by this guy? So I'm going to ask him how long the days have been, like days on market. And so that's when he lists the property. How long is it actually on the market for at the moment? What's that look like?
Units and townhouses, 7 to 14 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing with the closes being sharp, like 7 to 10 days finance, it makes a massive difference. Like 21 days finance does not exist anymore.
And so that's the importance of making sure you're looking at realestate.com and seeing what's out there, because if you don't book for a week, you might have missed out on the right property for you. All right, guys, I'm going to throw it out to the floor. Does anyone have any questions for Remy? All right, round of applause for Remy, guys. Thank you so much.